True intelligence does not scream for attention. It does not try to prove itself in every room, nor does it desperately seek validation from others. The wisest people in history, Socrates, Epictetus, Marcus, Aurelius, all understood a truth that many overlook. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you do not know. Socrates once declared, "I know that I know nothing." At first, this seems contradictory. How can someone know nothing and still be wise? But therein lies the paradox of intelligence. The foolish man believes he has reached the peak of knowledge. He clings to his opinions as unshakable truths. He argues endlessly to prove himself right, but the wise man recognizes the vastness of life. He sees knowledge as an endless ocean and himself as a mere drop within it. If you often find yourself questioning, doubting, and seeking truth rather than blindly accepting it, you are already smarter than most people, because intelligence is not about having all the answers. It is about having the courage to ask the right questions. The Stoics remind us that arrogance is the enemy of growth. Epictetus said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. When you assume you know it all, you shut the door to wisdom. But when you humble yourself, when you admit ignorance, you open the path to continuous learning." Look at the world today. People argue endlessly, each convinced of their own superiority. Everyone wants to be seen as right. But very few are willing to listen, to reflect, to admit mistakes. That is why genuine intelligence is so rare. If you are someone who does not rush to conclusions, who listens before speaking, who reads, learns, and reflects deeply, understand this: you are already walking the path of the wise. Do not confuse humility with weakness. Humility is strength because it allows you to grow where others remain stagnant. When you recognize how little you know, you become a lifelong student. Every person you meet becomes a teacher. Every hardship becomes a lesson. Every day becomes an opportunity to learn something new. This mindset makes you powerful beyond measure, because while others stop evolving, you keep rising. The Stoic life is built on this principle, remaining a student of life until the very end. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor of Rome, wrote in his meditations as if he were still learning, still questioning, still improving himself. If the most powerful man of his time could admit his ignorance, then so can we. So the first sign you are smarter than most people is simple yet profound. You know how little you actually know. And in that humility, you hold the key to wisdom, growth, and true power. One of the clearest signs of intelligence is emotional discipline. Anyone can become angry, anxious, or jealous. Anyone can lash out when provoked, but very few possess the strength to remain calm when the world tries to break them. This ability, the mastery of emotions, is not just wisdom, it is power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The average person lives like a puppet, with strings pulled by circumstance. They are happy when things go their way, miserable when they don't, peaceful in comfort and restless in adversity. Their emotions rise and fall like a leaf in the wind. But the Stoic and the truly intelligent do not allow external chaos to dictate their inner state. Think about it. When someone insults you, what happens? Most people instantly react. Anger takes over. Pride is wounded, and words are thrown like weapons. But what if you did not react? What if you simply observed, detached, and refused to let their negativity control you? That silence, that calmness, that unshaken presence is the mark of wisdom. For you have proven that no one else has power over your peace. Controlling emotions does not mean suppressing them or pretending to feel nothing. It means understanding them, mastering them, and choosing your response rather than being enslaved by impulse. Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That simple sentence separates the wise from the foolish. The average mind is reactive. It seeks revenge for insult, panics in hardship, and celebrates only when fortune smiles. But the intelligent mind is proactive. It observes emotions like clouds drifting through the sky, acknowledging them, yet never being ruled by them. Imagine two people facing the same crisis, say the loss of a job. The ordinary man collapses under stress, drowning in despair. The intelligent one pauses, accepts reality, and begins to plan his next step with composure. Both faced the same storm, but one drowned while the other sailed forward. The difference: emotional control. When you master your emotions, you gain freedom. Freedom from anger that poisons the soul. Freedom from envy that corrodes peace. Freedom from fear that paralyzes action. Most people will never taste this freedom because they let emotions govern their lives. But if you are practicing calmness, reflection, and self-mastery, you are already ahead of most. Remember, intelligence is not shown by how fast you speak, how much you know, or how clever you sound. It is revealed in your ability to remain unshaken when life tests you. The one who controls himself is mightier than the one who conquers cities. So the second sign you are smarter than most people is this: you do not let emotions control you, you control them. And in that quiet discipline lies true strength. In today's world, everyone wants to be heard, but very few want to listen. Everyone wants to speak, argue, and shout their opinions, yet silence, the very thing that holds wisdom, is treated as weakness. But the Stoics knew otherwise. They understood that silence is not emptiness, it is power. Epictetus once said, "Nature gave us one tongue but two ears so that we may listen twice as much as we speak." This truth cuts deep. Most people talk endlessly, desperate for validation, eager to prove themselves right. But the wise man, the intelligent man, observes first. He speaks less, but when he does, his words carry weight because they are forged in reflection, not in impulse. Silence is intelligence because it creates space for clarity. In silence, you are not reacting, you are thinking. You are not trying to impress, you are trying to understand. And in that understanding, you separate yourself from the crowd. Look around you. Most people fill every gap with noise. Scrolling through distractions, gossiping about others, talking without purpose. Yet, what do they gain? Nothing but wasted energy. The one who values silence invests that same energy in learning, in observing, in building strength of mind. When you listen more than you speak, you gain insight into others. You begin to see the world for what it really is, not for what people pretend it to be. You learn from every conversation because instead of trying to dominate it, you absorb it. That is intelligence. The Stoics practice this discipline daily. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, could have spoken endlessly if he wished. He was the most powerful man of his time. Yet in his meditations, he writes not to the world, but to himself, in silence, in private reflection. Why? Because true wisdom does not seek an audience, it seeks truth. If you value silence, it means you value your own mind. You don't waste words trying to prove yourself to the unwise. You don't exhaust energy on arguments that do not matter. You conserve your strength for what truly deserves it. And here is the paradox. Silence makes your words louder. When you do speak, people listen because they know your words are not born of impulse but of thought. The average person throws out 1,000 meaningless sentences. The intelligent one may speak only a few, but they strike deeper than all the rest. So ask yourself, do you seek noise or do you seek clarity? Do you talk to be heard or do you listen to understand? If you are one who values silence, who uses it as a tool of strength, know this: you are already smarter than most. For in silence lies discipline, in silence lies wisdom, and in silence lies the strength that no amount of noise can ever match. One of the greatest marks of intelligence is knowing where to place your energy. Most people waste their lives worrying about things they cannot change, complaining about circumstances beyond their influence, and exhausting themselves fighting battles they can never win. But the wise understand a simple Stoic truth: focus only on what you can control. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control. Epictetus explained it clearly: some things are in our control and others are not. This principle, though simple, separates the intelligent from the foolish. Think about it. Storms will come, people will betray you, markets will collapse, accidents will happen. These things are beyond your reach. The average person spends hours, days, even years resenting them, wishing they were different. But no amount of anger, no amount of worry, no amount of despair can change what is outside your grasp. The wise person sees this and asks, what can I do with what I have? What is within my reach? That is where their energy goes. And this shift, this redirection of focus, is the foundation of freedom. Imagine two men trapped in the same storm at sea. One curses the waves, screams at the sky, and blames fate for his suffering. The other tightens the sails, steadies the rudder, and focuses only on guiding his ship. Which one survives? The one who controlled what he could. This is not just intelligence, it is survival. In life, the same rule applies. You cannot control whether people respect you, but you can control whether you live with integrity. You cannot control the opinions of others, but you can control the principles you stand by. You cannot control whether life throws hardship at you, but you can control your response. That response is where your power lies. Marcus Aurelius, a man burdened with the weight of ruling an empire, reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." If even an emperor could not control everything around him, why should we waste our energy on such illusions? When you focus only on what you can control, you free yourself from chains that enslave most people. You no longer live in fear of the uncontrollable because you know it does not belong to you. You no longer drown in resentment because you understand that life was never meant to obey your demands. Instead, you pour yourself into action, into effort, into discipline, into choices that are yours alone. That is intelligence, not knowing everything, not predicting the future, but mastering yourself in the present moment. So the fourth sign you are smarter than most people is this: you focus your energy only on what you can control, and by doing so, you live with peace, power, and freedom that the majority will never know. Most people see failure as the end. They stumble once and believe they are finished. They face pain and immediately retreat, thinking life has turned against them. But the wise, the truly intelligent, see pain not as punishment, but as a teacher. They see failure not as defeat, but as direction. Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Just as a muscle cannot grow without resistance, the mind cannot grow without struggle." The ordinary person avoids hardship, hides from discomfort, and seeks only ease. But ease never made anyone great. The wise know that every setback carries within it the seed of growth, if only you are willing to learn. Think about a blacksmith. To shape steel into a sword, he must heat it in fire, strike it with force, and cool it in water. Without this process, the steel remains weak, fragile, and unshaped. In the same way, life's trials shape you. Every loss, every rejection, every moment of pain is fire striking the raw metal of your soul, turning you into something unbreakable. The average person sees pain and asks, "Why me?" The wise see pain and ask, "What can this teach me?" That small shift in perspective transforms suffering into strength. Failure becomes feedback. Hardship becomes fuel. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, illness, and war, yet he never cursed his fate. Instead, he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the essence of Stoic intelligence. Obstacles are not walls to stop you, they are doors to guide you. When you adopt this mindset, failure loses its power to break you. You stop fearing mistakes because you understand they are necessary for mastery. You stop resenting pain because you know it refines you. While others collapse under pressure, you rise from it, forged into someone stronger. Look at history's greatest minds. Edison failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. Marcus Aurelius ruled during plagues and wars but found wisdom in hardship. Epictetus was born a slave, crippled by his master, yet became one of the greatest teachers of philosophy. Their greatness did not come in spite of suffering, it came because of it. If you are the kind of person who refuses to let pain define you, if you rise after failure and search for the lesson within the loss, you are already smarter than most, because intelligence is not about avoiding failure, it is about transforming it. So remember, every time you are knocked down, life is handing you a lesson. Do not waste it, do not curse it. Learn from it, for the one who learns from pain can never be defeated. That is the fifth sign of intelligence. You do not fear pain and failure. You use them to grow stronger than before. One of the most powerful signs of true intelligence is independence of thought. Most people live as slaves to opinion. They measure their worth by applause, their happiness by compliments, and their success by how many others approve of them. But the wise know this is a trap. The more you seek approval, the more you chain yourself to the crowd, and the crowd is almost always wrong. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know the truth." Think about that. 10,000 people could praise you, but if their praise is shallow, ignorant, or misplaced, what is it really worth? Nothing. The intelligent mind does not chase validation, it chases virtue. It does not live to be liked, it lives to be right. Most people fear standing alone. They fear being judged, criticized, or rejected. So they conform even when their soul resists. They follow the herd, even when the herd walks toward destruction. But intelligence demands courage, the courage to walk your own path, even when it is unpopular. History is full of examples. Socrates questioned the norms of Athens, and they condemned him to death. Epictetus spoke truth, though he was once a slave, living with nothing. Marcus Aurelius held to his Stoic principles while ruling an empire full of corruption and flattery. None of them bowed to the crowd, because they knew truth mattered more than approval. The wise man asks, "What do I stand for? What values guide me?" Once he knows, he walks firmly, unmoved by gossip or criticism. If he is praised, he does not swell with pride. If he is mocked, he does not shrink in shame. For he knows his worth comes not from the voices of others, but from the strength of his own character. This independence is rare. Most people today are addicted to likes, shares, and opinions. Their identity rises and falls with the approval of strangers. But if you are someone who can remain centered while others criticize, if you can hold to your principles even when no one claps for you, then you are already far ahead. The Stoics remind us, reputation is external, virtue is internal, approval is temporary, but character is eternal. You cannot control how the crowd sees you, but you can control how you live. And in the end, your peace will not come from applause, it will come from knowing you walk the path of truth. So the sixth sign you are smarter than most people is this: you do not seek approval. You do not bend to the crowd. You live by principle, guided not by noise but by wisdom. That is true strength, that is true freedom, and that is the mark of a mind far above the rest.